victory for democracy recently, where they demanded that the Trump administration pay the billions of dollars that Congress had already appropriated to USAID. I guess having a meltdown, a stage 10 meltdown over Amy Coney Barrett.
Not arguing that he gets absolute immunity for all unofficial acts. His lawyer was conceding at the oral argument. There are some unofficial acts that he made in the role as candidate Trump that he wouldn't be protected.
The Supreme Court just handed Trump a ruling so sharp it might as well have been dipped in lemon juice. One landmark decision, and suddenly he's spiraling like someone just took back his gold toilet. He's Swigert thinking he'd scored a lifetime get-out-of-jail-free card, but the justices shredded that fantasy and handed him a mirror instead. Now he's pacing around Mar-a-Lago, his face redder than his tie, ranting about immunity like it's some coupon he forgot to use. This isn't just a ruling, it's the moment Trump realized even reality TV villains eventually get voted off.
News, historic news, unprecedented news. Chief Justice John Roberts, not waiting around for a court hearing or a case to write it in, has opened a dialogue and rebuked Donald Trump in public, telling him to back off calls to impeach federal judges, that that's not the way. The way is through appeal. What got his ire up? What got Chief Justice Roberts' ire up this morning? Donald Trump posting on social media a blatant, violent attack on the chief judge of the D.C.
No one's above the law in the United States. That's a foundational principle.
And nobody is above the law in this country, and that includes the President of the United States.
No person in this country, no matter how high or powerful, is above the law.
I believe that no one is above the law under our system, and that includes the president. The president is fully bound by the law, the Constitution, and statute.
Fully bound by the law, the Constitutions, and statutes.
Before we move on, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. Donald Trump has taken plenty of hits in his life, from bankrupt casinos and failed airlines to that whole university scam. But nothing stinks quite like losing in court, and this time, the Supreme Court just handed him a legal smackdown so brutal, you could almost hear his golf club cracking from coast to coast.
Very important that the Supreme Court recognize that what he's doing is a delaying tactic, and that the American people, it cannot be the case that a president of the United States can attempt to overturn an election and seize power, and that our justice system is incapable of holding a trial, of holding him to account before the next election. That cannot be.
Trump's lawyers strutted into the Supreme Court like they were about to headline a Vegas show, grinning ear to ear, certain they were about to pull off the legal equivalent of a magic trick. You could almost hear their internal monologue. We got this immunity, piece of cake. They walked in clutching their legal arguments like a kid with an ice cream cone on a hot summer day, full of confidence, completely unaware it was about to melt all over their shoes.
Justice John Roberts, in a very rare public statement, is saying that impeaching judges over legal rulings that you don't like isn't how it works. It's not how the American judiciary is organized. This is in response to Donald Trump's completely...
They trotted out their grand claim that the President of the United States should be essentially untouchable, immune to prosecution, immune to consequences, immune to reality. In Trump's world, sitting behind the resolute desk is like slipping into an invisibility cloak straight out of Harry Potter, except instead of sneaking through hallways, it's used to dodge lawsuits, subpoenas, and indictments like they're raindrops. Their argument boiled down to this: he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, and what's anyone going to do? He's the president. The justices, bless them, didn't even need to break a sweat on this one. Even the ones Trump himself handpicked, the so-called golden ticket to his legal bliss, looked at his lawyers like they just tried to pay for groceries with monopoly money. You could almost see the thought bubbles above their heads. This is your argument? Really? You want us to endorse the idea that the president is some all-powerful, unaccountable emperor? It was the judicial equivalent of someone showing up to a chess match, flipping the board over and shouting, "Checkmate," without making a single legal move.
What do you make of the judicial system's handling of Donald Trump?
It seems to me the bottom line is there something in our system that means it can't handle a Donald Trump, right? He engages in delay. He seems to skate out from under sorts of problems and challenges no other person could avoid. And I think that causes a lot of people to question.
Chief Justice Roberts, who isn't exactly known for his comedy chops, practically delivered a punchline in his decision. No, the president is not above the law. No, he doesn't get a special pass to commit felonies in broad daylight. And no, presidential power doesn't come with a no-strings-attached immunity coupon. Roberts might as well have stood up and said, even kings have rules. And last I checked, we fought an entire revolution to avoid that kind of nonsense. What's even more absurd is that Trump actually thought the people he handpicked would bend the entire judicial system just to keep his name out of courtrooms. It's like hiring referees for a game and expecting them to ignore all the faults you're committing, only to realize they got the rulebook memorized and aren't swayed by your jersey. And Trump, you can imagine how that went down. The second the ruling dropped, he probably tossed aside whatever Big Mac he was holding, stormed off to the nearest Mar-a-Lago, locked himself in his office, and began firing off an all-caps, type-of-filled meltdown. Unfair. Total witch hunt. The usual suspects. You can bet he was pacing, demanding someone block the Supreme Court on Truth Social like they're an ex who won't stop texting.
To this case, Donald Trump said he could assassinate his political opponents when he was president. He could stage a coup. And people thought that that was hyperbole and over the line. It is time we start to take him literally and seriously, because today, a majority of the U.S. Supreme Court did just that. In fact, Donald Trump, if returned to the White House and in the Oval Office, assassinates his political opponents as part of a plan to effectuate what he...
Meanwhile, his legal team is probably back at square one, scrambling to figure out how to spin this into a win. Good luck with that. The Supreme Court essentially told them, nice try, but no one, not even a president, is above the law. Now they're left cleaning up the mess of what was supposed to be Trump's legal safety net. But let's be honest, the funniest part isn't that Trump lost. It's that he genuinely thought he wouldn't. That's the story of his life, surrounded by enablers who keep telling him he's winning, even as the walls close in. It's not enough for him to lose once. He keeps finding new, more embarrassing ways to lose, bigger, louder, and in front of an even larger audience. This ruling wasn't just a legal setback, it was a national wake-up call. No matter how many times Trump insists he's untouchable, reality has a way of knocking even louder. The Supreme Court just handed him a giant mirror, and now he's screaming at his own reflection. And somewhere out there, late-night comedians are already popping champagne and crafting their monologues.
Trump, well, you might get the view that maybe the job of the Supreme Court is to do what he wants them to do. Listen to how he thanks Chief Justice John Roberts like an orange mafioso following his joint address to Congress on Tuesday night.
Thank you again. Thank you. Won't forget.
Did you catch the won't forget? Ha! And yeah, the Supreme Court has ruled in Trump's favor a bunch of times. Remember the presidential immunity decision from last summer? But not always.